Okay, here we go, guys. Welcome to Fueling Neurodiversity, How Food Shapes Mood, Focus, Regulation, presented by your host, Andrea Cesarek, registered dietitian. Okay, so a little bit about me. As I just said, I'm a licensed and registered dietitian. I was I went to the University of Hawaii for both my undergrad and my graduate. I graduated with a bachelor's degree in dietetics and a minor's degree in microbiology. And then I went on to a combined graduate and internship program in nutrition science. Okay. I'm the founder of Blessin Health, and currently it's all telehealth. So I'm working with people all over the USA. Before I was self-employed, I worked as a clinical dietitian at Queens Medical Center in Honolulu. Um, I still take some patients, not many, but some patients with a website called Food Smart, which is a program that provides nutrition services for low income Medicaid uh, patient patients that work with their insurance companies to give like some incentives towards food bucks, I call it. It's like a little bit of grocery money, a little extra grocery money, and few nutrition consultations as like a preventative health service. And then before that, my first job outside of school was working for the Women, Infant, Children's program as a public health nutritionist. So if anybody is from somewhere else outside of the US and then you don't know what the Women, Infant, Children's program is, it's a program for low income, high risk women and children. So women that are pregnant or lactating or up to like 6 months post pregnancy or up to 12 months after they deliver. If they're breastfeeding, they get food packages. And then it's also children up to 5 years old. They'll get food packages, and then everybody gets to get some nutrition education every 3 months. And then the people that are considered high risk. So in that case, they would be flagged as being high risk if they had autism or diabetes, a variety of other things that could have warrant some additional help. And then a public health nutritionist or WIC is a dietitian that consults them and at their high risk. And so when I started this job, I was really amazed to see how many families had children with autism and how so many parents were saying, I have this child with autism, they don't want to eat anything, and all I can get them to eat is French fries and mac and cheese, or insert your safe foods. And the doctor's not really that concerned because they're not underweight, but I'm really concerned about it. So when when I was working as a public health nutritionist, I was just like, these people need some more help than a 20-minute dietitian consult every 3 months. So that was what spurred my interest. And I'll be honest, when I went to school, we got one slide in the 6 years of training that I got on autism. And that one slide just said they're picky eaters. These are the vitamins they're probably deficient of. And that was about it. Maybe it said something about the microbiome. I don't totally remember, but I just thought like, okay, well, what do I do? How do I help these families? And I just went down the rabbit hole and I started learning from other dietitians. There's one, if you just Google the autism dietitian, there's this woman that has this beautiful, beautiful podcast and community and everything like that. And so I highly recommend looking into that if you're looking for like, okay, let me get some practical information now. I the first thing I did was I binge listened to all her podcasts, and then I started working with families and learning about what worked and what didn't work, and here I am today. Okay, and just little fun facts. Before I was a dietitian, I was a well, I am still a licensed massage therapist. I don't really do much of that. It's more of like a fun thing that I do on occasion. Once in a while, I'll pick up a little work and or like giving a massage to somebody in my family or one of my friends or something like that. But mostly I just focus on dietetics now. I am a certified yoga instructor, Reiki master and teacher. And then I've also worked as a newborn photographer. I've worked in the film industry, sales. I've I've done a lot of things, graphic design, all kinds of stuff. And as you might guess, I feel like I am a strong candidate for having inattentive ADHD, or what I like to call ADHSH, you know, attention deficit superhero. I or superpower, whatever you want to call it. A funny story. So I'm putting on the summit because I want to help all you families with neurodiverse neurodiversity family members, neurodiverse family members. And in the process, I was reading, like I was learning a lot about ADHD, and I was like, that sounds familiar. That sounds familiar. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, like that explains a lot. And so I haven't taken any steps to try to get a formal diagnosis, but I'm pretty sure that, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Anyways, okay. So like I was saying, specializing um nutrition for autism and ADHD. And then I also work with women's health. So that could be conception, fertility, prenatal, PCOS. I'm licensed in Hawaii, Illinois, and Oregon. And then these following other states, they don't require a license. So I can see people in those states for medical nutrition therapy without having to get licensed, which is really nice. Michigan's going to change pretty soon, but I'm from Michigan, so I will definitely get a Michigan license. And I'm hoping to expand this further as I go. I do take cash pay. Clients. And then I can also take some insurances through Berry Street. It's a online platform where you can see a dietitian. And so, anyways, just to give you a heads up that it is possible to work together if you're in one of those states. Okay, so what's a registered dietitian? This is a food and nutrition expert who did a 4-year undergrad degree in dietetics, internship, passed the national exam, and then after 2024, they required that any new dietitians to take the dietitian exam, they would have to have a master's degree. So when you see registered dietitian, that means that this person has gone through a lot of school and training, and like evidence-based nutrition therapy. If you see something like registered dietitian nutritionist, that's just another way to say it. If you see things like nutritionist or nutrition coach or a million other things, the amount of training and experience they have can really vary. So if if you see somebody like that, I'm not saying that they don't offer great things, because I feel like anybody that's going in this field probably is spending a lot of time learning. But so if you do see anything else that's outside of those basic terms, and I would say just ask them, like, where did you train? What's your qualifications? Because we don't, we don't know. But a registered dietitian, there's a uniform standard. Okay. And then when to ask to see a registered dietitian. So any kind of GI issues, if your child's constipated, having chronic diarrhea, a lot of stomach aches, restricted or disordered eating. So this is for children that are not getting, that are not accepting a lot of foods that could be considered disorder eating or eating disorder. So um, I would ask for a referral if you feel like your child's not eating a whole lot of things, if they're overweight or underweight, and then preventative care, a knowledge deficit if you don't understand and you want to know better. And then if you have suspected food sensitivities or allergies, you can also ask to see a dietitian. So the main ones, like definitely the eating disorder, the overweight or the underweight, and like those are gonna be probably covered by insurance if you get a referral from your doctor. The preventative care knowledge deficit, like this is actually a really cool new thing where a lot of the private insurances have started to offer preventative care, which means that you don't even need a referral and there's no copay. So, for example, Berry Street, the company I work for, most of my clients on Berry Street, they don't pay anything out of pocket. And a lot of them that have good insurance, so I'm talking about like private insurance, unfortunately, Blue Cross is one of the most common ones that will offer unlimited consults, meaning that you can see a dietitian without a referral for as many visits as you want. And not everybody has this package, but more and more insurance companies are getting the memo that sending people to a dietitian is a lot cheaper than sending people to a doctor. And then the things that we can prevent together is going to save them a lot of money in the long run. So a lot of the insurances are offering the preventative care. And so if you go to say like Berry Street and you go on there, you can put in your nutrition information, your insurance information, and see if they the accept your insurance, because sometimes you can see a dietitian free of charge, where if your doctor writes you a referral, they have to have a nutrition diagnosis. So the nutrition diagnosis can be like what I said, like the underweight, the potential AGI issue if your insurance covers that. And then if there's an eating disorder, they'll almost definitely cover that. So I would definitely say it's worth a shot. Your child deserves it, and it might not even cost you anything. Okay. Symptoms and food logs. So if you're going to see your doctor and ask for a referral, or if you got a referral or you got a uh, appointment with a dietitian, to show up with a food log of what the child's eating, how much they're eating, any symptoms, digestive and behavioral, because sometimes it'll tide. And I would say, bring 3 to 7 days worth of tracking to your doctor or your dietitian. This will help them, this will help the doctor see that this isn't in your head, that your child's only eating 5 different foods, right? Like this will help them see that, okay, there's a nutrition need to get that referral. And then it'll also help say, like, okay, let's look and see. They're having a digestive issue. What did they eat that day? What did they eat the day before? And then you can start to backtrack it and you can start to look for patterns. So definitely, I would say out of, everything that you get out of here, if you can start making food logs and symptom logs, you're gonna make so much more progress when you see a doctor and when you see a dietitian, because unfortunately doctors don't get a lot of training in nutrition, so sometimes we really need to advocate on behalf of our children or self. Okay, this I keep saying children, but all of this can apply to anybody at any stage with anything going on, right? It doesn't even have to be neurodiversity, right? Anything that's going on. This is a big one. Okay. So don't wait. Advocate for a referral as soon as you suspect a problem. So if the doctor says, oh, their teacher's a little behind, but they'll grow out of it. No, don't accept that. Say, I want an evaluation. I don't want to wait. Same thing if they're late starting food, eating food, they're having problems eating food, that kind of thing. You want to get that referral as soon as possible, because the process can take time. You got to get the referral, and you got to find somebody that's going to take you, and that occupational therapist, they might have a 3-month waiting list, and you don't want to wait 3 months for a referral and then 3 months for waiting list, right? Because your child's brain is developing now. There's no waiting. And if the doctor says, "Oh, they'll catch up," you say, "No, like I need to see I need to see someone now." And if your doctor won't write you a referral and there's a serious problem, you find a new doctor. This is your child's health. Take it seriously because it's very, very important. So I, I'm just a strong advocate because I feel like there's so many times where people are like, yeah, the doctor said they'll grow out of it. They didn't, and now I could have got an intervention a year ago, but now I'm just starting the process, and then now I have to wait another 6 months for my autism evaluation before I can qualify for any of these services. So there's no waiting. If you suspect a problem, get an assessment. If your doctor won't give you an assessment, find one that will. Sometimes you have to put in the effort, but it's so worth it because time is so precious. Your child's brain is developing, and the sooner you find the problem, the sooner you can start to fix it, the quicker your child is going to get closer to catching up. Uh, so when a child's having a hard time eating or like I say, like not regressing, these are like the two people that you want to get that referral to as soon as possible. Occupational therapists, so pediatric feeding therapy. This person can evaluate if there's issues chewing, swallowing, oral motor, feeding challenges. So you can imagine the same set of challenges that would prevent um, a child from learning to speak can also make it harder for them to eat. So these, if they're having texture aversions, oral defensiveness, like they're gagging, spitting, refusing food, they seem really anxious at mealtime, and then they're falling behind on age-appropriate self-feeding skills. You want to go to an occupational therapist and see if you can get evaluated just to make sure that they're able to, like it's not that they don't want to eat the certain foods that you're offering, maybe they can't. Um, we're just assuming that every child's got those motor skills and they don't always. And then the same thing, the speech language pathologists, they can assess for the same sort of things. So finding that coordination, the disordered feeding skills, and same thing, they can evaluate the chewing and swallowing difficulty and see if there's a problem with that, because that's not something your dietitian is going to help you with. So you need to have a complete care team, especially in the beginning when you're trying to isolate where the problem's stemming from. Okay, and then there could be issues, tongue tie, jaw development, bite alignment. The child may be having oral pain, and there might be dental concerns. So don't always just assume that they don't want to eat. Maybe like chewing, an older child chewing on a piece of meat could be painful for them, and you're just thinking that they're being picky. So getting a good pediatric dentist or oral motor specialist to do an evaluation to make sure that it's not a tooth infection, that there's nothing wrong with the formation of the jaw. This is another area where it's like, don't don't wait. Like just get it. The standards for children, the new recommendations are that you should schedule their first dentist visit at 1 years old. That way, as the teeth are coming in, you've got care already established, and the child, as they grow up, they're already used to seeing the dentist. So you're not taking a 2-year-old to the dentist office, which is kind of scary for the first time. Especially if by then they're really hesitant about people touching them and that kind of thing. It's invasive. So the earlier you start with the dentist, the better. Um, and then a GI specialist. So if there's constipation, acid reflux, bloating, you're suspecting food allergies, intolerances, you think that they're refusing to eat because they're indicating that there's some level of pain or discomfort. They can sometimes run a stool sample to get an idea of what's going on in the microbiome. And again, like this is something where I've talked to so many parents and the doctors are like, here, like here's a prescription for like acid reflux. And I'm just like, the a baby should not have acid reflux, right? So get a get a referral. You just you have to advocate because like I said, like not every doctor understands everything, especially when it comes to nutrition and digestion. Like they're taught in medical school. Um, these are the drugs that help with these symptoms. They're not always taught about nutrition and how nutrition affects health. Unfortunately, that is starting to change, but it's still a thing where it's not the first line, right? So I would, if you suspect digestive problems, get that, like I said, get a consult to a dietitian, but also see if you can see a GI specialist because a lot of the testing that a GI specialist can do will be covered under insurance. Where if I order a stool sample or advanced lab testing to try to diagnose what, well, I can't medically diagnose, but nutritionally diagnose what's going on. I can't I can't submit that to insurance for you. So that's all like out of pocket if it's coming from me. But if it's coming from a doctor or a GI specialist, a lot of the labs could be covered. Okay. So how diet can help. So leaky gut can lead to gut brain inflammation, or well, leaky gut and gut brain inflammation. So we're removing foods that cause inflammation, adding anti-inflammatory foods, and then adding foods that supply probiotics to help heal the gut. Nutritional deficiencies. So if your child's really not eating a lot of different foods, they may be starting to become deficient in certain vitamins and minerals, and that can affect brain health and all this stuff, right? If our body needs these nutrients to function properly, you can imagine that a lack of nutrients can cause issues, right? There could be a yeast overgrowth. So removing sugars, removing refined flour products and starches, there could be toxicity. So avoiding food additives, avoiding toxins, if possible, eating organic foods can help with the repair because of all the crap that they're spraying on our food. I'm feeding conventional animals. It's nothing that we evolved to understand. So diet, the less of that like toxic processed stuff with the red dyes and or whatever color dye is, anything synthetic, getting that out of the system because that could be toxic. And then faulty methylation and salvation. So you can imagine that methylation is a big thing that I could probably spend an hour talking about. If your child has certain genetics that impair methylation, then you can imagine like so methylation basically is adding a methyl donor to certain vitamins like B12 and folate. So if there's an impaired methylation process, then what happens is the body can't use the B vitamins that are coming in, all the B vitamins that are coming in, and there's like a cog in the system that starts to have all these downstream effects, which lead to impaired detoxification, which leads to these toxins that are coming from our food and environment building up in the system, causing more problems. There's studies that show that autistic children sometimes have more metal, like heavy metals built up in their body, right? Like, and I'll tell you, like this, like studies, you can find everything you want on any side of the conversation when you look at the scientific studies. But I'll just say that I've looked over some that looked really good that we're just saying like, okay, we're finding more heavy metals in children with autism, and because, like I said, their bodies might not be methylating properly. Um, so there's certain foods that could impair the methylation process even more. And then supplements can help with this, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about supplements at the end of this. Okay. Okay. So these are all things that may be improved by improving diet. So like I said, it can be behavioral as well as it can be physical, stomach issues or gut issues, things like that. But you might even see that if you can improve the diet, you can improve the behavior, you can improve the language skills, all that stuff. Because like I said, it's all tied together. And I'll tell you, and I've talked to families where they'll tell me, I put my child on a gluten casein free diet and they started talking. Like that was one of the feedback I got. I got another mom that came and she said, my child was falling behind in developing language skills. I took all the processed food out of his diet. And now a year later, if he were to get reevaluated, he wouldn't even qualify as being autistic. So there's I can't give anybody a medical claim that anything is going to work or not work for their child specifically because every child's different. And so I don't want to say that this is like 100% going to be your results, but what I'm saying is that these are some of the things that diet can improve. And then I mean everything else health related, right? Okay. So these are main offenders, like we are talking about nutritional deficiency, sugar, especially ADHD, right? Because you've got these already stimulated children and then you add a bunch of sugar to it. And if you think about sugar, the sugar it makes the blood sugar go up, right? Like peak up and then crash down and peak up and crash down. And so if you're constantly feeding your kid sugar throughout the day, they're going on this roller coaster of up and down, up and down. So their moods are going up and down, up and down. And that sugar is also causing inflammation. Grains may affect. So this isn't all of them. This is just some, right? And every single thing on this list, it depends on the child and what's going on, right? Because this is all a combination of genetics and epigenetics, which is how our environment shapes how our genetics express themselves. So these aren't all going to qualify for every single child. This is just some of the main offenders. So these are things that you want to talk to your doctor and your dietitian about because some of this stuff you can do testing for, and some of this stuff you have to do trial by error, take it out, and then see how things go, and then try putting it back in and see how things go. Like sometimes it's got to be that way, and then sometimes you can just test and get an answer. And then the phenols, psych, I'm going to say this wrong, cyclinates, the oxalates, phytic acid, lectins, these are all compounds that we're finding in food. So the oxalates, lectins, like these are defense mechanisms from plants. Plants have their own built-in defense mechanisms to protect themselves against bugs. And so they're compounds that can be be harmful in large amounts, especially like I said, like if the methylation process is slow and then the body is not not processing and not able to eliminate and detoxify and things like that, like these things can build up. Oxalates are what can cause kidney stones. So this kind of thing, it's complex. And so I recommend getting help with this. Like don't just start taking food out of your child's diet without working with a care team that's going to help you navigate the process. And then gluten and dairy, unfortunately, as much as we love gluten and dairy, those can be major offenders. They can cause a lot of inflammation, and they have these things that are considered opiate peptides. So in our brains, we have these opiate receptors, which is why opiate drugs are really addicting to us. And that's why these gluten and dairy foods are really like addicting because they can hit these opiate receptors. And so a child may have these sensitivities to gluten or dairy, And that can cause inflammation and that can cause irrational behavior, as well as like soy and corn. But think about it, like if you come to me and you say, my child eats chicken nuggets, milk, cheese, and French fries, like like they only want to eat these four things, then you want to you want to look at it and you go like, I cannot put the child directly on a gluten casein free diet because if we're taking out 4 out of 5 safe foods, what is the child going to eat? So that's why it's really important to start adding foods first, add the foods, and then once you add the foods, then you can then you can start subtracting and replacing. It's you really don't want to go in and make a drastic diet change to an already selective eater. Um, so please, 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 if you're gonna try these methods, like work with a dietitian, find somebody that you can trust. I know sometimes you might have to pay out of pocket, but it's worth it to make sure that you're not doing damage. And then food sensitivity. So we all have food sensitivities and it's all in varying degrees. So for me, it's gluten, corn, and then seed oils. Those will all make me get inflamed. However, somebody else, it could be totally different things. So if foods are making, if your child has a food sensitivity, then eating certain foods may upset their stomach, and then that might be why they don't want to eat them, right? And going back to those GI issues. Um, so when we look at the food sensitivities, we want to be very careful about starting to, like I was saying earlier, make that food log. So you're logging and you can start to see, okay, maybe, like I said, like maybe we had constipation on Monday. What do we eat on Sunday? What do we eat Monday morning? What could have, like, what's downstream of these issues, right? So that's one way to start to try to make it a decision. But then there's also tests that I can run. One's called the MRT test, and this is what I consider the best food sensitivity test on the market. It's taking a blood sample and then it's adding like all these different food antigens into the blood sample and seeing how the immune system is responding to the food. So that way you can see what's the immune system responding. A food sensitivity is different than an allergy. So just because you had your child allergy tested doesn't mean they don't have food sensitivities. Intolerance means that their body's not breaking it down. So when we talk about lactose intolerant, that means that we don't have the digestive enzymes to break down the sugar that's in dairy products, right? But a sensitivity is different than that because the sensitivity, it's not it's not as much like the digestion, it's more the immune system. And so, like I say, like it's complicated, especially if your child isn't speaking and you can't ask them how they're feeling. You have to look and see, is he holding his stomach? Is he constipated? And, in your food log, you could also write down how often, he's going to the bathroom, so that you can look and see, okay, how many days has it been since he voided? Because that could be a whole other thing. And then the yeast and bacterial infections, those can cause havoc on the microbiome. So with this, it's really important. Like, don't just guess, get it tested. So, like I say, like sometimes those GI doctors can do these tests and they'll be covered under insurance, or you can pay out of pocket and maybe it's a lot of money, maybe it's $500, which could be a lot of money to people to run a stool sample. But I mean, isn't your child worth figuring out where you can find that money to find out what's going on, right? So if you're trying all these other things and nothing's working, then it may be something more than just the food that's coming in. It might be what's going on in the gut. And if you weren't able, like if the mother wasn't able to breastfeed for any reason, the microbiome may have gotten affected by that, because when we breastfeed, we're passing on our immune system to our child, right? So sometimes a child that was formula fed could be more susceptible to bacterial infections because they don't have the good bacteria established from their mother. If a child has had antibiotics at any time, that can wipe out all the good bacteria. The the food additives and the pesticides that they're spraying on our food, that can wipe out the bacteria because it's meant to kill bugs, right? So if you're eating food that's sprayed with all these chemicals that are meant to kill bugs, what do you think is happening to the bugs in the happy bugs in your gut? Like that that can be affected too. Oh my gosh, sorry, I'm talking so much. But okay, so this is going back to how to reduce inflammation. So we talked about the food sensitivity testing. We talked about the gluten and dairy. Omega-3s are super important. So omega-3s the are an essential healthy fat. We get a lot of this in salmon, and fatty fish is like our best source. Um, but it can also be in a variety of other foods, chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp hearts. So this is super important to include in the diet, and we'll talk a little bit later about like supplementing if you have an issue. Methylated multivitamins, if there's a methylation problem, that could potentially help with reducing the inflammation because we can get the body to start methylating. Okay. Mediterranean diet is like the number one diet that everybody in the nutrition world can agree is is good for everybody in the world, right? So they do a lot of anti-inflammatory foods like olive oil and fresh fruits and vegetables, healthy whole grains, and then a lesser amount of kind of like the animal-based products. And so this diet works really well and it's super tasty. A lot of people love Mediterranean food. Eliminating inflammatory oils. This is huge, guys. Like, go into when this is over, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to go into your cupboards and look at the ingredients and the nutrition facts and look for vegetable oils, corn oil, canola oil, anything that says the word seed after the seed oil. So sunflower oil, safflower oil, these sound healthy, grapeseed oil, all that stuff. Things like Crisco, anything that says hydrogenated oil, your margarines, your salad dressings, major offenders, right? So all these oils are just crap for our body. Okay. And this isn't just children, this is everybody, all of you. Everybody that's human. And all the animals too, right? These oils are not natural. They're not occurring in nature. You take the olive and you press it, you can make olive oil. You take a coconut, right? And there's a process, but you can do it without even like your own machinery. You can make your own coconut oil. Avocado is like a little bit more processing, but they're oil. Avocados are fatty, right? How do you get oil out of corn? What is vegetable oil? Like what vegetables is that? It's so think about that, like your oils. And so every cell in our body is surrounded by these lipid membranes, right? Every single cell in your body is full of fat. That's what protects the cell from spilling out into into the rest of the body is these lipid membranes. So the oils that we put into our membranes are super critical, like critical for replication of cells to make these cells healthy. And so when we eat all these inflammatory oils that are full of a lot of omega-6s, it is an essential fat, but it's something that we need like in a minimal amount, and we need a lot of the omega-3s, but our American diet, it's low in omega-3s and it's high in omega-6s. So that the ratio is totally backwards. Like the omega-6s are meant to aid in inflammation. So omega-3s are anti-inflammatory, omega-6s are pro-inflammatory. We need some inflammation because that's what protects us if we get cut, and we need to launch a attack to make sure that invaders don't get in our blood, right? So we need a little bit of omega-6s, but the American diet has way too much because of all these junky oils. If you go out to eat and you get French fries, they're fried in, I guarantee 99% of the places are fried in one of these crappy oils. And that oil's been fried over and over and over. So those oils are becoming trans fats, which are totally not natural. There's no trans fats that occur naturally in nature, and they cause inflammation. So replace those oils. Olive oil if you're cooking at a low to medium heat. Coconut and avocado oil if you're cooking at a higher heat is fine. Um, so, and then I'm a big fan of grass-fed butter for, in moderation, right? Good grass-fed butter. So getting your meat grass-fed if possible, your dairy grass-fed if possible, pasture-raised eggs, all that stuff where the animals are living their best life out there the way that they were meant to, eating the food that they were meant to, getting sunlight, having a good life, and they don't get sick a lot. They're not getting pumped full of all these hormones and the wrong feeding. So I know it's expensive to get the grass-fed meat and dairy, but it's so worth it. Like if you're gonna splurge on anything in the diet, that's a good place to do it, right? And if you have to decide because it's so much money to get good quality meat, then what I would recommend is get the good quality meat in smaller amounts and then eat more of other sources of protein, like good, beans and things like that, to make up for the difference. Because beans are, they don't provide as much protein as meat, but that they can be a good source of protein and easy on the budget. So you can find that combination of where that balance is. And I mean, I'm a big proponent of actually, funny enough, I was a vegetarian for a long time, and then I started eating meat again when I started studying nutrition because I found out that the nutrients in meat and dairy are just easily more absorbed. So if there's anything going on with digestion, it can sometimes be easier to absorb the nutrition, but you don't want to overeat them, right? It's all about the balance. So these are just some anti-inflammatory foods. I'll share these slides, so I'm not going to go through everything just for time's sake, but here's some ideas of anti-inflammatory foods. Here's some more anti-inflammatory foods. Fermented foods are a big one because they're going to help the microbiome. Okay, picky eating. We did have a speaker talk about the picky eating, so I'm going to kind of not go too much into this here, but I just want to bring up a couple points of like always making safe food. So there's this idea of like having a learning plate. So when you're adding new foods that the child's not used to, you can add a learning plate as a side portion. So that way you're adding the new food, but it's not touching their safe food, so it's not intimidating them, and it's not a pressure for them to eat it. It's called a learning plate. You put it there, you let them play with it, you talk to them if they're speaking, you can say, what color is this food? What does it smell like? Can you touch it? And just encourage them to interact with the food before you try to make them eat it. Because when we're very sensitive with um, with all kinds of things, it can be like new food is it's a lot, right? There's a color to it, there's a texture to it, there's a flavor to it, there's the unknown, and then like I said, if there's gut problems, like new foods can be really intimidating. So you want to make it fun, you want to make it playful. Sometimes the best time to introduce a new food is during playtime when the child's happy and running around, and then you bring a little charcuterie board with some of their favorite foods and then some new foods and encourage play, right? It doesn't have to, if you're sitting at the table and you're like, eat your food, eat your food. They just pick up on the anger. They don't know what it's about. And then it makes them not even want to eat it more. So you have to make it fun, right? Reward them, get them excited, take them grocery shopping with you. Say, hey, like we're going to the grocery store. Let's pick out a new vegetable or fruit and take them there and, with all the colorful fruit and say, what do you want to try? And if you don't know how to make it, go on the internet and ask, and you'll find a recipe. And you guys can do the recipe together if the child's old enough to learn. You can get them to wash the if your child loves to play in water, get them to wash the fruit or vegetable for you when you're preparing it, because that's getting them to touch it and integrate with it and getting them excited, and then they're part of it. If the child's a little older and they can, just rip the lettuce to make the salad, or if you can trust them cutting things up with a knife or something like that, grating something. It's every time that they're touching the food before you're asking them to eat it, they're already making that connection with the food, and they're going to be more likely to want to try it. And if you can really go um one step farther and help them grow the food. Oh my gosh, if you get a garden and you get them out there in the dirt watering the garden, even if it's just in a pot, or you get one of those little hydro gardens or something like that, and they watching that food grow, they're gonna want to try it. They're going to be interested and curious. So you want to make it really fun and exciting. And then don't just try to sneak food in things, because sometimes that can really backfire. If they have a safe food and you're sneaking things into it, that can make that food unsafe for them, and then you lost another food. So be really careful about this, like be very conscious, right? So say you wanted to add a new food to the mac and cheese or something like that, like you try it with a vegetable. I would give them their little safe portion of the mac and cheese, and then the mac and cheese with the vegetable added on their learning plate, so that if they're curious, they can try it, right? So we want to do it slowly. Smoothies are a good way to get things in, because every time you have a smoothie, you're gonna learn to expect that it's gonna taste a little different. So that can be, smoothies and like sauces and things like that. Like sometimes you can you can get you can start to put foods in those kind of things. But again, you don't want it to come across as sneaky. You want this to be about trust. You want them to trust that you. And then supplement if necessary. So if there's something that's really missing from the child's diet, if they're not eating any dairy, you may have to add some calcium, right? If they're not eating omega-3s, if they're not eating, if they're not eating a variety of foods, you may want to add a multivitamin, that kind of thing. But talk to your dietitian about this. Talk to your doctor about this. Don't just start adding a bunch of supplements that you don't understand. Okay. So this just some nutrients of concern. This is the basic MyPlate recommendations. If you go to myplate.gov, those all kinds of things that'll talk about like what a child, like what the USDA recommended food group allowances. And just imagine you want your plate to look similar to like this: quarter of the plate protein, quarter of the plate grains, and then half the plate fruits and vegetables, and then a serving of dairy on side if your child can tolerate dairy, of course. And then if your child has blood sugar issues, you may want this half of the plate to just be vegetables, and be very minimal about the fruits, and consider that fruits in with the grains as a carbohydrate food. So that's if your child has diabetes or some other kind of blood issue, sugar issue. But again, that's talk to your dietitian, find a dietitian, right? Okay. And then medication-induced appetite dysregulation. So this is big on a lot of the ADHD medications. Sometimes they reduce appetite, or other medications your child might be taking. So good practice is to front load a very good nutrient dense, protein rich, high calorie breakfast before you give the medications. That way, uh, you're getting as much food into them before they take their medications, offering the food even if they don't like say that they're hungry, trying to make all the food that you're offering count with the nutrition. The smoothies we talked about are sometimes easy to get a kid to have a smoothie even if they don't want to eat a meal. And you can put all kinds of great stuff and healthy fats in smoothies. And then making your dinner really hearty with protein, healthy fats, fiber that's containing starches or veggies. And then again, supplement if necessary. So supplements, okay, I could talk all day long about supplements. Unfortunately, we are already past time. So I'm just going to keep it to like these are kind of across the board is find a multivitamin that avoids synthetic folic acid. So if your child has a MTHFR gene, they're probably more likely to have methylation issues. And so a methylated multivitamin is naturally it's going to allow the child to use those B vitamins, the methylfolate and the methyl B12, methylated B12. So to see if a vitamin is methylated, if it doesn't say methylated on it, if you look at the ingredients, it should say like instead of saying folate, like folic acid or something like that, it'll say like methylfolate. And then the folonic acid, the leucovorin, this is like a big buzz right now about because some families are finding that it's really helping their children. Again, this is a great thing to talk to your dietitian about. I'm not making any claims or anything like that, but some people are finding it really helpful. And then just a word of caution, methylated vitamins may be contraindicated if somebody is bipolar or on psychiatric medications because it can make the psychiatric medications work better. So this is like something that you want to talk to their doctor about. If they're seeing a psychiatrist, I would I would just let them know. And if you add a methylated multivitamin and your child seems like they're sensitive to it, it might be because their methylation process is already so slow that sometimes if you add like a high dose of methylated vitamins too quickly, you might notice a change in their behavior for the negative. And it might not be because they don't need them. It might be because it's too much too fast. So there are um, there are dropper forms of methylated B vitamins. So what you can do is you can get like a dropper of it and then give your child a drop, small amounts and then slowly build up before you add in that methylated multivitamin. Um, and then omega-3s, if you're looking for omega-3s, you want to look for a fish oil that's been tested for mercury because some of the cheaper ones on the market might be coming from these like fish that are contaminated highly with mercury. And so we don't want to add more mercury into the system. Same thing like fish is one of those things where the bigger the fish is, the more mercury is going to contain. So we don't want to eat like super large fish all the time, right? Like those are something only on like okay, like every other week or something like that, where like things that are like salmon and smaller, like if the fish naturally is small enough to fit in a frying pan, it's probably going to be low in mercury. So fish oil is a big one. Make sure it's a clean source, and then probiotics. So that's replenishing the good gut bacteria. Um, okay, and so I wanted to share this, and I'm going to give you my word right now that I would never recommend a supplement just because I'm affiliate unless I truly believed in it. And it's something that like I would take myself or if I had children, offer my children. And I found this supplement and I was blown away by this supplement. If you go to aspirenutrition.com/Blessin Health, you'll get 15% off your order and you can use that link every time you order. So every time you order, you can get 15% off, not just the first order. So that's super cool. Um, and or you can put Blessin Health as the coupon code, right? And so this is a really powerful probiotic. It's going to help it gives you healthy gut bacteria, brain support, brain function support. So it has a supplement in it that helps with brain function, supporting a healthy immune response, detox supplement, boost digestion, nutrient absorption, and fighting inflammation. And then they have all kinds of other, like I think they have a multivitamin. It comes in a powder, so you can mix it with a liquid. It's unflavored, so it doesn't have a strong flavor. It's not going to taste like nothing in water. Like you're going to taste a little bit of something, but if you blend it in a smoothie, it's probably not even going to be detected, right? Um, and some parents like they'll mix it in with the ketchup or they'll mix it in with the milk or something like that. And so it was designed specifically because the owner of the company, he actually had a child with autism that had a lot of issues, and he did a deep dive into the research, and he found this combination of strands of probiotics and all these other things that are in the BioHeal Pro. And he made this for his son, and his son had made drastic improvements in his health and behavior. And he wanted to share it with the world. And he started this company, and they're just amazing. So check them out. Okay. And then I'm launching in January supplements that support neurodiversity. So this is going to be a full course where I'll be talking about all the other supplements that I can't get to today because there's so many of them, and it's very the supplements are like the Wild West, right? You go on Amazon and you look for any kind of supplement, and you're going to get 100 different companies that are offering variations of the same supplement. And how do you know which ones are high quality, which ones are worth the money, and which ones are science evidence backed or just somebody that is making a claim? Okay. So this course is meant to help you navigate the world of supplements. So you're going to learn from me, and I'm also like in the course, you're going to get high quality, hand selected recommendations with discounts. So it's a win-win for everybody. You're supporting me and the work that I'm doing to put on more summits, to reach more people, to be able to provide this service free of charge. And in the process, you're going to learn a lot about supplements and how to do it properly. I I'll make the disclaimer that I am a dietitian. I'm not your dietitian. So if there's any serious questions that evolve like that are about deficiencies or contraindications and things like that, like always talk to your child's care team about adding like before you add supplements, because if they're taking medication, sometimes supplements interact with medications. And so when I'm giving all this information, it's educational, but I can't, unless I'm working directly one-on-one with you, I'm not going to see what is all behind the scenes as far as what's going on in your child's health. So I would say that like this is meant to prepare you so that you can go to the doctor and you can say like this is what I want to do. Is this reasonable? And also be prepared that, like I said, not every doctor understands nutrition. So if you want to know if a supplement's likely to interact with a medication, the best person to talk to is your pharmacist, actually. Right. I mean, you can talk to your doctor too, but the doctor might not know. And if the doctor doesn't know, they're going to say, don't do it because like I say, like all this, like science is an art, not a science, unfortunately. We think of science as being absolute. This study said this, so this confirms this. But if you look up like everything, like if I looked up like do heavy metals affect autism, right? Like I'm gonna find a list of studies that confirm that hypothesis, and I'm gonna find a list of studies that don't find confirmation of it. So the world of science is not settled. I always take a what I call a um, parent affirming approach, where I believe parents when they say to me like, "This is what I'm observing. This is what happened. This is my child took this pharmaceutical and then there was this reaction, or my child ate this food and there was this reaction," or like I listen to the parent, but not all health practitioners. Like some of them just go like, "This is what I was taught in medical school, so this is what I believe." So always do your own research, but also bring that research to your doctor, to your care team, and have conversations and ask questions, right? Like don't just take their word for it, because like I say, like there's all kinds of ways, and there's a million ways to a healthy diet, right? There's not a one size fit all. Like if if we had more time, I would talk about the ketogenic diet, because that diet can significantly benefit brain health in a lot of people, as far as like when we're talking about the ups and downs of the carbohydrates and the sugars and things like that. When you have a little bit of carbs or sugar and the brain goes up, the mood goes up and then it crashes down and that kind of thing. Like the ketogenic diet, it's more of like, because you're limiting most of the carbohydrates, your brain is going like this, and it feels way more steady in some people. But in other people, it's too hard of a diet, or they can't follow it, or they don't know how to follow it, and it's a total nightmare, and it's contraindicated for some conditions and things like that. So there's no one size fits all to nutrition. There's no one size fits all to supplements. There's no one size fits all to diet, right? It's very individualized. So this supplement course is a tool to help you make more informed decisions, not to replace having one-on-one working with a one-on-one um, dietitian. But just understand that supplements, like there's always new ones coming out, and there's always new research. And if your doctor's seeing 50 patients a day, they're not always going to go home at night and start digging through the scientific journals to see what it says about a specific supplement, right? Like that's a lot for a busy doctor. Um, so this course is going to be ongoing. Like I'm going to keep updating it as I'm learning, as the science is evolving. If something changes what I'm learning, I'm going to go back and I'm going to revise. So this is going to be like a living course. We're going to start off and we're just going to slowly keep expanding. So the great news is this course is offered as part of our VIP package. So for $37, you're going to have first access to my course when it launches in January. You're going to get a question and answer session with some of our guest speakers, and you're going to get all the replays. So you can watch all the videos that you didn't have a chance to watch for $37. That's a heck of a deal. This course, when it comes out, it's going to be more than $37 just for the course alone. So I highly recommend you take advantage of this offer. And it also really helps support me because I put this whole thing together by myself. I funded it all, and I'm offering it free for everybody because I want to build a community, and I want to get these speakers out there because they've had such valuable information that can help people. So if you have it on your heart to support the summit for $37, you also are going to receive a lot of amazing things. So if you check all the emails, there's an upgrade option to get this course in the package. Just click on it. Like you said, it's $37. I mean, what can you get these days for $37? Okay. And mahalo. So that's thank you in Hawaiian. Um, I appreciate your patience. I know this has been very long, and I hope informative. Okay, so I'm just looking in the chat. Okay, if there's any updates. Okay. Um, okay. Okay. Anybody real quick, I have to work in like 45 minutes, so I don't really have time to ask a lot of questions, but was there anything that you were wondering, or I didn't cover that you want me to do a follow-up video on? Okay, you can put it in the chat. If not, don't worry. This isn't going to be the last you've seen of me. Keep keep an eye on your email. My intention is, like I said, like not just to have a summit, but to build a community and to make that connection. And so I would really love if you went and joined our Facebook group and, chime in and like start a conversation in it. Tell me about yourself, your challenges, what you like about the summit. Feedback is super important. I've got a YouTube channel, so this will be posted on the YouTube channel. I'm gonna post this for everybody. I think I'm gonna make it public on the YouTube channel because I really do think that this is really important information to get out to people. And Instagram, Neurodiversity Thrives, or Ask a Holistic RD is my Instagram. So check it out. Thank you again so much for your patience. I'm really humbled by all the feedback and all the support that I've received in this process. And I hope you enjoyed this. You have a wonderful day. Very, very much appreciate all you people that stuck it out to the end. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the recording now.